The distress beacon had been silent for 11 days. Ethan Kross didn't panic. Panic was a luxury he'd stopped affording himself somewhere around hour 6, when the last shuttle had burned past the docking ring and the airlock had sealed behind the retreating crew of the Velith station, an orbital platform orbiting a gas giant 3 light-years from the nearest human colony. He was alone. Completely, thoroughly alone. And the station's core reactor was bleeding plasma at a rate that would collapse the containment field in approximately 42 hours. Ethan sat on the floor of the engineering bay, surrounded by alien schematics he could only partially read, and ate a protein bar. He chewed slowly. Deliberately. A human habit he'd never broken: eat when you can, think while you eat, never waste a moment of calm before the chaos returns. He looked around at what the Velith engineers had left behind. Tools. Strange ones, 6-fingered handles, pressure valves calibrated for limbs that bent backwards at the third joint. Schematics written in Kael'thi notation, which used 17 color gradients instead of numeric values. Spare components made from metamorphic alloys that changed density under different electromagnetic frequencies. Nothing designed for human hands. Human eyes. Human understanding. Good thing Ethan Kross wasn't most humans. He'd spent 4 years embedded with the Velith Technical Cooperative as the first human exchange engineer in their history. He'd learned the language, not just the spoken clicks and harmonic tones, but the engineering language. The way their schematics breathed meaning through color. The way their tools assumed a physiology nothing like his own. He'd adapted. Humans were good at that. The evacuation had been sudden, a political crisis, a border dispute, 7 species arguing over territorial grids while a single human technician got left behind in the scramble. Ethan didn't blame anyone. Chaos forgot individuals. He understood that. What he didn't understand, not yet, was why the plasma containment was failing. The Velith's own engineers hadn't been able to diagnose it before they fled. In their report, transmitted before comms went dark, Chief Engineer Kael Veyron had listed it as Condition Veth, a Kael'thi term that roughly translated to an irreversible cascade of unknown origin. Unknown origin. Ethan Kross did not accept unknown origins. He cracked his knuckles, a habit that had always disturbed his Velith colleagues, the sound of bones shifting sending visible ripples of discomfort through their gill slits, and got to work. First, he mapped the bleeding. The Velith containment system was elegant in ways that made human magnetic confinement look like a child's rubber band model. It used 17 interlocking field layers, each one tuned to a harmonic frequency that the others reinforced. The genius was in the redundancy: if one layer wobbled, the others compensated. But something was making all 17 wobble simultaneously. Slowly. Like a song going out of tune, one instrument at a time. Ethan spent 8 hours crawling through service corridors, taking manual readings with a Kael'thi flux meter that required him to hold it at a precise 34-degree angle to compensate for his non-Velith grip pressure. He noted every deviation. Every fluctuation. He mapped it in his head first, a human habit the Velith had always found baffling. "You carry no external memory device?" they would ask. "Your recall storage is biological?" They'd said it like it was a design flaw. It wasn't a flaw. It was the oldest supercomputer in the galaxy, and it never ran out of battery. By hour 16, Ethan saw the pattern. It wasn't a mechanical failure. It wasn't a software cascade. It was resonance drift, a phenomenon so subtle that Velith instruments weren't calibrated to detect it, because Velith engineers had never encountered it. Their technology was old. Proven. Stable across centuries. But the gas giant below the station had an atmospheric storm cycle that peaked every 340 hours, and that storm cycle generated gravitational microwaves. Tiny. Almost immeasurable. But they were interfering with the lowest harmonic layer of the containment field like a ghost tapping on glass. Slowly. Persistently. Building resonance. No Veilith engineer had seen it because no Veilith engineer had ever thought to look below the station during a containment crisis. Why would you look at weather when your reactor was failing? Because a human engineer had spent 3 years listening to his Veilith colleagues dismiss atmospheric influence on orbital systems, had privately disagreed, and had quietly run calculations in his downtime just to see if he was wrong. He hadn't been wrong. The fix was the problem. To counteract resonance drift, Ethan needed to introduce a counter-frequency into the lowest containment layer. Simple in theory. Catastrophically complicated in practice, because the Veilith system had no mechanism for manual frequency injection. It was a closed, self-correcting loop, brilliant design, 0 outside input ports. He needed to build one. With alien tools. Alien components. And hands that were the wrong shape for all of it. He spent 4 hours just learning how to properly grip a Kael'thi resonance wrench, a tool designed for fingers that could rotate 180 degrees at the second joint. He improvised a brace from a length of polymer tubing, strapping 2 of his fingers together to mimic the limb geometry, and practiced on a dead conduit until he could turn the wrench without stripping the coupling threads. Then he started building a frequency injector. From scratch. Using metamorphic alloy components he had to pre-treat with the station's environmental system, raising local electromagnetic output to shift the alloy density before he could cut it, then lowering it again to lock the shape. He cycled the environment 7 times. The temperature in the engineering bay swung between near freezing and desert hot. He kept working. He ate 2 more protein bars. He drank recycled water. He slept for 90 minutes on the floor because his body demanded it, and he was pragmatic enough to obey. Then he got back up. At hour 31 of 42, the injector was done. It looked wrong. It looked like something built by a species that wasn't Veilith, that didn't think like Veilith, that approached the problem from an angle the station's designers had never imagined, because they were the same species who designed the problem. You can't always see your own blind spots. That's what outside eyes are for. He installed it in 23 minutes, lying upside down in a service crawlspace with a modified tool handle strapped to his wrist, working by the light of a chemical glow strip because the maintenance lighting was on a power conservation cycle. He activated the injector. The counter frequency sang into the containment field like a key into a lock. For 6 terrible seconds, nothing happened. Then the plasma readings steadied. 1 layer. 2. 5. 12. All 17 field harmonics locked back into resonance, clean and stable, holding like they were welded into place. The reactor hummed. Not the frantic, stuttering hum of a dying system, the deep, satisfied hum of a machine working exactly as designed. Ethan Cross lay upside down in a service crawlspace at the end of the known galaxy and let out a long, slow breath. Then he climbed out, found a wall to lean against, and ate his last protein bar. The rescue shuttle from the Veilith Cooperative arrived at hour 56, 14 hours after the reactor had been stabilized. Chief Engineer Kael Veron was the first through the airlock. He was tall even by Veilith standards, his 4 eyes cycling through colors that Ethan had learned to read like a mood ring, amber for professional concern, shifting toward the pale violet that meant something close to disbelief. Kael looked at the engineering bay. At the polymer-braced tool handles. At the 7 times cycled environmental system logs. At the impossible frequency injector bolted into a port that wasn't supposed to exist. He looked at Ethan. "We classified this as condition Veth," Kael said slowly, in careful, formal Kael'thi. "I know," Ethan replied, in the same language. Condition Veth means irreversible cascade of unknown origin. "I know. You reversed it." Kael's eyes cycled deeper into violet. "And you found the origin. Gravitational microwaves from the storm cycle. Your lowest containment harmonic was resonating at a subfrequency your instruments don't measure. I built an injector to counteract it." Ethan paused. You might want to install proper ports for future maintenance. I can draw up the specs. Kale stared at him for a long moment. Around him, the Valeth rescue crew had gone very still, 7 engineers who had studied containment systems for decades, looking at a repair that their own classification system said was impossible. You had 42 hours, Kale said finally. You had the wrong tools. The wrong hands. No compatible systems. Ethan shrugged. A human gesture. A small one. I had time, he said. And I had a problem. That's usually enough. Kale Veyron was silent for another moment. Then, slowly, he did something Ethan had only ever seen Valeth do for other Valeth. He extended both primary hands, palms turned upward, a gesture that in their culture carried the weight of profound, unqualified respect. Ethan reached out and placed his human hands in them. Outside the station, the gas giant's storm turned slowly below them, its microwaves still singing their quiet, invisible song into space. It didn't matter anymore. The engineer had already answered. Humanity, it turned out, didn't need the right tools. It just needed a reason to start.